The principal snatched the mic mid-sentence and sneered, "I'd translate, but sadly, I don't speak mime." The gym fell silent, hundreds of students frozen, staring at the deaf Navy veteran on stage. Jack didn't flinch, he just nodded and walked away. But what happened next will shock even those who thought they'd seen everything. But first, let's go back to the beginning. The silence that followed Jack's absence wasn't quiet. It was loud with tension, the kind that hangs in the air when something sacred has been shattered. For the rest of the week, Roosevelt's hallways felt colder. The usual clang of lockers and adolescent chatter dulled into a kind of suspended hush, like everyone was waiting for someone to say what they were all thinking. In room 214, Mrs. Reynolds taught history with fire in her gut, but by Wednesday even she was struggling to keep her tone steady. She caught herself pausing mid-lecture, eyes flicking to the empty stool by the back wall, Jack's unofficial seat during free periods. He'd sit there, off to the side, helping kids who never raised their hands finally find their voices. Those same kids now sat quieter, angrier. Noah Perez, a sophomore with a rap sheet longer than his GPA, hadn't said a word since Monday. He used to sign "thank you" to Jack at the end of every session. Now he just stared at the floor, jaw clenched. Michaela Rhodes, who'd once skipped class weekly until Jack convinced her she was worth showing up for, stayed late after sixth period, scribbling furiously in her notebook. When Mrs. Reynolds peeked at the page, she saw it was a poem, half rage, half prayer, about voices that go unheard and the cowards who laugh at silence. By Friday, whispers had hardened into resentment. Principal Brewster, of course, went on as if nothing had happened. He strutted through the school like a man unbothered, clapping athletes on the shoulder, complimenting AP students on their college essays. He had no idea that every polite smile he received from faculty was laced with disgust, that even the PTA moms were exchanging pointed glances, that the janitor, Reggie, a Gulf War vet himself, had started mopping more aggressively whenever Brewster passed. Brewster had underestimated something vital, something no resume, no Ivy League polish could outmaneuver. Pain. Jack's pain wasn't the kind that showed up in disciplinary reports or made headlines. It was quieter, deeper, the kind that soldiers carried long after the battlefield, tucked inside their ribs like shrapnel. He never asked for pity, never even asked for credit. All he'd wanted was to serve again, in a different way, to reach the broken kids before the world broke them completely. Instead, he'd been mocked. Not by some drunk at a bar, but by a man in a suit, holding a microphone, standing in front of children. And that wound cut deeper than combat. Word got out. Someone posted the clip, grainy phone footage of Brewster's smirk, the cruel joke, Jack's stillness. It spread like a scar across local message boards and veteran forums. Comments rolled in like storm clouds. Unbelievable! Disgraceful! He saved lives and this is his thanks? But the real shift didn't come from adults. It came from the students. They began signing to each other in the halls, clumsy at first, fingers fumbling, messages half missed. But it didn't matter. They were speaking Jack's language now, speaking without words, refusing to let silence be shame. It had started with a laugh. Now it was growing into something else, something stronger, something that hurt. Thursday dawned sharp and wind-bitten, the kind of cold that makes everything feel more alive. Roosevelt High's students filtered into the gymnasium with the usual adolescent chaos, but it wasn't usual. The air had a charge, a weight. News had traveled fast. The Navy was coming. No one knew exactly what to expect. The black vans had been spotted again that morning, this time parking deliberately at the front loop. Visible, impossible to miss. Some students peeked through blinds during first period and whispered like it was urban legend made real. They're here, real Navy officers, in uniform. Inside the gym, rows of folding chairs had been rearranged. The school banners were still hanging, but new ones, deep blue, gold-trimmed, had been added. No one admitted who gave permission. No one needed to. Principal Brewster stood off stage, flanked by two assistant principals and clearly trying to mask his discomfort behind a tightly forced smile. He wore the same gray suit he always did, pressed to perfection, but for once it looked out of place, stiff and unimportant among the sharp creases and insignias of naval dress blues. At 10:03 a.m., the doors opened. Chief Petty Officer Marisol Vega entered first, compact, iron-backed, eyes like polished steel. She didn't speak. She simply scanned the gym with a glance that felt like a sonar sweep, efficient, precise. Behind her came the band, 30 strong, uniformed and silent. Not even a note yet, and already the room had shifted. The students stood, some uncertainly, some out of reflex, but many out of something deeper. Respect, maybe. Gratitude, maybe even hope. Chief Vega stepped to the mic. Her voice, when it came, wasn't loud. It was deliberate. "I'm not here to talk about war. I'm here to talk about service, and what it means to respect it." She paused, not for drama, but for space, to let silence mean something. Then, slowly, she raised her hand and began to sign. Every word she spoke came with matching signs. Her hands moved cleanly, fluidly. Someone in the back started whispering what she was saying aloud for students who didn't know ASL, but the power wasn't in the words. It was in the way she delivered them. "We teach our sailors that strength isn't in volume. It's in discipline. It's in how you stand up for the people who made it possible for you to be here." A beat. "One of those people is Jack Morris." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some clapped without even meaning to. The name, unspoken since Monday, felt like a spark hitting dry grass. Vega continued, "Chief Morris lost his hearing protecting his team. He didn't ask for recognition. He asked for a chance to serve again. And he did. Here, with your students." The band rose behind her, and then, with no introduction, they played. Not just any song. The Navy hymn, its haunting brass and gentle snare floating across the gym like incense in a cathedral. It was reverent, holy, and final. By the time the last note faded, there wasn't a sound in the room. No coughs, no shuffling, just stillness and tears. From students, from teachers, even from the janitor, Reggie, who stood near the bleachers, hand flat to his chest. Brewster didn't move, didn't speak. He was now just a shadow behind something much larger than him, and though Jack wasn't there, the space he left was filled, not with pity, but with power. That morning, Roosevelt High remembered what honor sounded like, even in silence. The applause didn't end. It transformed. From mere noise into something physical, something alive. It pulsed through the gym like a heartbeat. A living, breathing recognition of something sacred that had just taken place. Students weren't clapping out of obligation anymore. They were clapping because something inside them had changed. Jack stood still for a moment beneath the harsh gym lights, the rows of bleachers fading into a blur as he scanned the room. His uniform, a dress blue coat with silver buttons and a row of ribbons that told stories few people in the room could ever truly understand, hung on him like armor. But his eyes, softened by tears he wouldn't shed, betrayed the soul of a man who never expected this. Not here, not from them. Chief Vega gave him a nod, not an order, not a command, just a nod, the kind that says, "Mission complete, and well done." Jack stepped forward. He didn't speak, didn't sign. He just walked, slowly, reverently, down the center aisle of the gym. The crowd parted for him, a sea of students and teachers and staff who'd once passed him in the halls like background furniture now standing in silent reverence. And then it happened. One by one, students lifted their hands, not waving, not filming, signing, respect. It started with Isaiah. He stood tall, chest out, jaw tight like he was holding back tears. His fingers shaped the word with practiced clarity. He'd learned it from Jack months ago, back when he was still skipping class and picking fights, back when Jack had pulled him aside and said, with nothing but hands and eyes, "You're worth more than what they say." Now Isaiah was the one leading. Dozens followed, then hundreds. Respect. In American Sign Language, it's not a subtle gesture. It's deliberate. From the brow outward, honor flowing from the mind, a salute of intellect and dignity, and it spread like fire across the gym. Jack stopped walking, just for a second. His shoulders trembled once, only once, and then squared again. The same kids who once mocked his silence were now speaking his language. Not to pity him, not to impress him, but to join him, on his terms. The superintendent stood near the stage, arms crossed. Not in defiance, but in awe. She didn't try to stop it, didn't try to frame it. She understood. This wasn't about policy anymore. This was about presence, about truth. Even Brewster, now seated near the exit with no podium to hide behind, couldn't deny it. His silence was different, shrinking, isolated, irrelevant. When Jack reached the gym doors, he paused, turned back. He raised his hand, and slowly, for the first time that day, he signed back. Thank you. Not a goodbye, not a finale, just a passing of the torch. Because the truth was, Jack had never wanted a spotlight. He only wanted a ripple, a moment, a seed planted. And as the gym erupted once more, this time into standing silence, no applause, no chants, just hands in the air signing one shared word, Jack Morris walked out knowing something permanent had been built in that room. Not noise, not protest. Legacy.